This is Amelia.
Hi, I'm Amelia.
Amelia drinks rosé, but gets overwhelmed at the huge choice of options at bottle shops.
I usually go to buy rosé on a hot summer's day. I usually get something that's lighter in colour because I don't like anything too dry. And I usually get a French label because that just seems right.
So Amelia, does that mean all light-coloured rosé is dry?
I don't know.
And either do most people. We've got 5 different rosés from 5 different regions, including the countries France, Portugal and Australia. Amelia, in front of you are 5 glasses with no labelling. Which would you pick just off its colour?
Ooh, I'm definitely not picking this wine right in the middle here. It is a dark pink orangey tone. It looks like straight up cordial syrup. The other 4 actually look like an identical colour to me. They're more of a pale pink, clear sort of colour, maybe with a bit of orange tone on the first 2, but I'm drawn to this one right here because it doesn't look like it's going to give me a headache in the morning.
So now Amelia's going to try all 5 wines from left to right and just off the taste, tell us what her favourite is.
This is wine number 1.
Is LYU Rosé from the Languedoc in France.
Not too sweet. Wine number 2.
Is Saint Louis Rosé from Provence in France.
That. Wine number 3, the cordial one as I'm calling it.
Mateus, a Portuguese rosé.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. Okay. Number 4, so the one I picked off the colour.
Is Giant Steps from the Yarra Valley.
Okay, that's not bad. And wine number 5.
Is Paradox, a cheap wine blend from here in Oz.
Okay, that's a bit sweet, so I don't like that one. I'm probably going to go off that alone, wine number 2. Because it's got notes of flavour, but it's not overpowering. And if I'm picking something for a hot summer's day, I just want something I can drink a little bit easier, but I want something to complement the table and the mood of what I'm going for.
I love you so much, but that is so notes of flavour.
Keep it.
Notes of flavour. Oh, it's in.
Keep it.
Oh, it's in. It's got notes of flavour. That's one of the great. For a person who's been producing this podcast for so long, notes of flavour.
To be fair, I can't distinguish between most of them. So off the appearance, I picked wine number 4, and off the taste, I picked wine number 2.
And now the reason why we believe people pick a bottle of rosé. The bottle and labelling, aka marketing.
Bottle number 1 has a geometric sort of look to it, and it looks a little bit French, and it's got a glass bottle top, which is quite cool for my age demographic, I believe. Second one has got a French label to it, which is probably something I'm a bit more drawn to, and it's got a taller, slim style bottle. The third one looks like a vase for flowers, which was a deeper colour, the cordial colour, and I'm not really drawn to that at all, to be perfectly honest. Bottle number 4 is quite a nice bottle. I think it's more of a classic sort of feel with a very watercolour label on the front, which I don't mind, and I do love the Yarra Valley. And bottle number 5, I just really like the design and the style of it. Again, another nice, simple coloured bottle, a bit more feminine, I think. But if I'm going to have to pick one, it'll probably be bottle number 2, the more French style label.
We can now tell you all glasses and bottles are in matching order. You like the look of number 4, Giant Steps from the Yarra Valley.
Okay.
But you preferred the taste and the bottle design of number 2, the Saint Louis Rosé from Provence in France. Could you point out which you think is the most expensive bottle?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go for bottle number 2 because it does say product of France. And yeah.
Incorrect.
What?
Let's find out which one is.
Don't tell me it's the cordial flavoured one.
And an official welcome back to Got Somm. The point of having Amelia on at the start of this episode focusing on rosé is because Amelia is a great representation. Mid-20s and I think all the way up to mid-30s. I think rosé is a really complicating purchase when buying alcohol. There's so many different colours. There's so many different labels. I think of all the wine bottles, the biggest brand marketing goes towards rosé. People are investing in proper design studios to have appealing labels, and I think that showed with Amelia's choices. She picked it based off how pretty the label was. And I think we all are, susceptible to that. Carlos Santos, Master Sommelier, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Angus.
This episode, we're not going to be going through and breaking down all of these wines individually. We're going to be talking about rosé as a whole and getting a Master Sommelier's opinion on what we can look for when we're in our wine stores or buying at auctions online of some kind of fail-safes, regions, areas and pricing that might help guide your next decision when buying a bottle.
Well, yeah, I think it's a hard one, as you said, as we were just talking just before we started. If you go into a bottle shop, especially in the summer, and you see 200 different labels, bottles of rosé, it will become very, very, very hard to pick. I think, looking by what Amelia chose, looking based on the color, she went for the lighter, brighter wines.
Which is the wine I've got in my glass as well. Giant Steps, the Rosé, the 2024 vintage.
I think that was what she picked off the color,
yeah.
And I will pour what she picked off the taste. So I want to have a little bit.
I've got
in
the color,
glass.
which is a really beautiful light pink, kind of like a rose petal, not a pink. It's like in between a white and red. It kind of feels like you've merged some cuttings together and created this hybrid. It's a beautiful color.
Yeah, it is a beautiful color. And I mean, in this case, we said we're not going to talk about labels, but this specific one is actually a really good label. It's a top Australian wine producer with some really, really high awards in wines, just the Chardonnay particularly.
And the label in particular has some watercolor roses, white and pink on the label, which represents the color well.
Correct, exactly. And then I think, as I said, all the four colors are very similar. There's one that has a deeper, darker color, and then again going back to the labels and shapes and stuff. I mean, really, who these days looking at this bottle would be picking this?
I obviously did, but I picked it because it's Portuguese.
Yes, I know, and there is a story behind it. It's one of the very first ever rosés. This dates back to 1942. This was owned by Sograp, which is a top wine producer. Some of the top labels that we still have in Portugal.
The wine, yeah.
Mateus Rosé. Yeah, Mateus Rosé. So it's a very, very long history. It's one of the very first rosés in the world. It's arguably, it's hard to pinpoint which one was the first, but one of the first commercially rosés produced. Of course, Languedoc, of course, there's many other regions that would produce wines, and Provence, for instance, as well. But this is up there as one of the first commercially produced rosés in the world. But then you see this label.
It looks more like a liqueur bottle, I would say.
A liqueur bottle. It doesn't look elegant. It
like
looks
Hennessy or something.
Yeah, that's right. It looks.
Well, it stands out.
It does stand out. It does stand out. But you see, someone on their mid-20s would go for a lighter color, bright. Why? Because it's hot. It's 40 degrees out there. You just want something fresh and clean and zesty and a little bit floral. And you don't know what to pick on the whites. There's so much diversity. You don't know what to pick on the reds. There's so much diversity. Rosé all looks the same. But then, of course, a lighter rosé, a lighter, as you said, floral and that light rose petal. So you go for that. You go for that bottle because it seems like he's a safe bet, and that's exactly what she said. He seems to be a safe bet.
Now I'm going to call my partner Emily. This wasn't planned or discussed. I'm going to get what I believe to be the wider audience's idea on what color in rosé, and I haven't planned this, or she has no idea. Obviously, she might not even answer. But hello, Emily.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. You're on Got Somm, the podcast. Got a question for you. When buying rosé, would you pick a light-coloured rosé or would you pick like a darker pink?
Very light.
Okay, and what do you associate – hello, Billy, my son. And what would you associate like a darker pink rosé as being in flavour?
Sweet.
Sweet. And so you think a lighter rosé colour is?
Dry.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
And I think my partner represents
80%, 70%.
And is it true? Because we know it's skin contact. It's obviously had longer skin contact.
Correct.
But when it comes down to sugar content,
maceration,
does it follow suit with colour?
No, not necessarily, because if the wine is fermented to dry, then the maceration wouldn't have matter. If there's, of course, the longer the maceration, the longer the skins stays in contact with the juice, of course, the deeper the color will be, which is the case of this wine, less the case of these ones. The sugar content has to do with the same as white or red.
You can have a light rosé that is sweet,
Well, you can if you don't allow for the fermentation to go all the way through, so it will retain sweetness, less alcohol, more sweetness.
There you go. I think that's a big misunderstanding when it comes to rosé simply
So
being grabbed off the shelf.
There's a good way of saying that. So which one you think it will be the sweetest? It will be the Portuguese. So now let's look at the alcohol content.
So looking at bottle number 5.
This is 8%.
Yeah, which is the
Paradox. It's pretty low. So you and is 8% and is super light in color. So looking at 8%, I'm assuming that there's some sweetness into it. I haven't tried, but to be tried. So, but I'm thinking like this probably has a sweetness to it. Yeah. The Giant Stamps is 12%, so that's the same as a white wine technically. So for me, that would be pretty dry.
It is a dry style. I do have that in my mouth.
The Portuguese is 11%. So, just 1 degree lower, but not quite as low as the Paradox.
So what are you saying is
The French.
overall, though, lighter alcohol wines might have, not in all cases, have
Yeah.
more sugar content.
It may, yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
one identifiable way.
Well, let's try the Paradox, for example, because it's 8%. Let's see how much sweetness is in it. Which can be masked as well sometimes by acidity but it's super light color. I mean, it's actually lighter than the French Provence. Aroma is pretty weak. There's nothing really...
Master Somm, baby.
Yeah, he's a little bit more sweetness, right?
Definitely.
He's not as dry.
Compared to the Giant Steps, I've just done a side-by-side.
Yeah.
Much more sweetness.
Much sweetness.
That's not fair.
Not much more, but there's definitely
Considerable taste difference.
slightly rounder. The sweetness gives that rounder texture in the mouth, and that has lower acidity. It may even have quite a good amount of acidity, but because of the sweetness being higher, it covers the acidity. So it feels less acidic, feels less fresh because of the sweetness, in my opinion.
There you go. Let's go through some prices as well, Carlos. You don't know the prices. I bought them all. Which one do you think is the most expensive bottle?
Yeah, I would think one of those two, one of the French wines. So we have a Languedoc and we have a Provence. So Languedoc and Provence is in the south of France. So Languedoc-Roussillon being closer to the Spanish border, and then Provence a little bit more south-central France. Both beautiful wine regions with a lot of different DOCs. Several wine regions producing wines, but yes, Côte de Provence are producing fantastic rosés. Tavel is another wine region that only just produces rosé. So it's renowned for their rosé wines, which is just literally across the road from Châteauneuf-du-Pape, if you like, Southern Rhône Valley, which typically are deeper, more concentrated rosés. So,
But are they sweet, Carlos?
no, they tend to be dry. They tend to be dry, but more coloring, more concentration, more richness, but dry. So yeah. Like maceration is heavier than, for example, in Provence.
And speaking to you before this podcast aired, you said, because when we are just having such a plethora of choice in front of us on shelves,
hard.
Hard things to look out for. Everyone does look for Provence in France.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I would say, the best marketed rosé. But you were like, no, Tavel. Like that's...
When talking about rosé particularly, I think it's important to mention Rioja. It's important to mention Navarra, so north-central Spain. It's important to mention Tavel because it is a DOC that only just produces rosé. So if you're talking about rosé, I think you should mention. Of course, the southern of France, Languedoc, Provence, etc. Because it's what people want to drink, especially those ones. Because the light rosé, you see, Amelia picked the French. Emily, your partner, picked the French rosé just without even seeing the label.
There can be 6 bottles of rosé on a wine list, and Emily and her friends, my partner's, young, early 30s, they will go, if there's 5, if there's a Rioja, an Australian, New Zealand, etc., and there's one French, the French will be purchased.
And you see, like, that's with the presumption that the French are better. But in that case, for example, if she had the Giant Steps and the Paradox on the wine list is Australian, and then she had a French Tavel, for example, which is more concentrated, is a little bit rich, is a little bit further north in France, not quite on the coast. It is not as summery, beach, etc. as is Languedoc and Roussillon. So we are in the southern Rhône with Tavel. and the rosés are more concentrated. Even though you would say French, she would probably still go for it because the rosé in French and is Tavel. But then she would probably prefer more the style of giant steps.
Like I said,
if
it's
that
a
makes
big
sense.
marketing piece.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
And I'll go through some of the prices. So the first bottle of French rosé, LYU, is $20.90. The giant steps was the most expensive at $28.50. The Paradox rosé on the end was only $12.99. The Mateus rosé. Now, this is a funny story because it was one of the first wines you ever had. How much do you pay in Portugal?
Probably €8, 7
€8? Okay.
6, 7, 8 euros.
Okay, well, it's $15.20 here.
Okay, well, that's now, yes. Well, back then would probably have been 3 or 4 euros.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we've got the pick of the litter when it comes to Amelia, and definitely my partner, Emily. And I think for most of the audience, which would be bottle number 2, the one from Provence that we've been speaking most about, $19.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
and so
good
the
value.
reason,
Good value.
no, yeah, good value. But the other thing I want to talk about that is we've got that bottle over here to Australia. We've paid, the importer has paid wine tax. We're paying the wine tax, of course, GST, all of the above. That bottle in France, straight from the winemaker, must cost nothing. That must be the not a clean skin, but it must be the lowest level of rosé, which gets me excited for finally one day going back to France and trying some, 20, 30 euro bottles of rosé, because this is the expectation in Australia, and I think the ceiling is so much higher.
Yeah, it does have a lot of that SO2 as well. Like on the palate, it is pristinely cleaned. So a lot of filtration go through these wines, and it does smell a little bit of that sulfite as well. So, I mean, look, it is what it is. He has a market. Summer hot days, we in Australia, it's 40-degree days sometimes, and if it's well chilled, yes, you want to go for a bottle like that, of course. I mean, he has his place. $19, I mean, yeah, probably I would want to pay less for that. I think $19 in Australia doesn't go a long way, but for example, in Europe, France, Spain, Portugal, it goes a long way, $20. You know? He buys you great bottles of wine from the OC regions that are famous.
So Master Sommelier, this is going to sound like a start of a joke. Master Sommelier walks into a bar and he looks at a wine list or is looking at a shelf in a bottle shop.
Yeah.
What are you looking for when purchasing a rosé around this $30 mark? Or maybe 40, 50?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good point because, again, depends on the day. If I'm going to the tennis and it's, 30, 40 degrees, I'm staying outside looking at the huge screen, I go grab a pizza and, I'm having fun, I probably, what you feel like drinking, I probably will order a bottle of rosé. No problem. And I will enjoy it because the atmosphere is great. It's fine. It's a pizza, uncomplicated. I will go for a, French Provence rosé because it's light, crisp, like the girls did. No problem. And I would be very happy. If I am at home and I'm deciding to cook, slow cooked lamb or, slow roast lamb, whatever, or something a little bit more refined, a fish and cream sauce, I would probably go something more developed. And that would go to, for example, a Rioja rosé that will be aging, 2 years with 6 months in oak barrel. That would bring so much more texture, so much more richness, so much more complexity. And then imagine you have that bottle of wine aged in the bottle for another 5 to 10 years. For example, a Lopez de Heredia Gran Reserva or something like this, which are a lot more rare, which are...
How much is that?
A lot more complex. You probably get that for, $40, $50. If you are in Europe...
We're going to have to put that in the show notes, everybody. So don't worry about trying to get that. We'll have that in the show notes below.
If you are in Europe, it probably will cost you 25 euros. And you will have an amazing bottle of wine. And it's still rosé, but of course a lot more complex, a lot more texture, a lot more richness, a lot more history even, It's a wine that has done the maturation 2 years, including 6 months in oak, plus all the, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in bottle aging. So we'll have that brownish color, not like any of these colors. This is still very vibrant. It will just be that brown, mature color.
Which would put off a lot of people when they're buying rosé.
But that's the point. If you, that's sorry.
No, I love it. Passion, baby. Tell me.
That's the point. When you go on a bottle shop and you look at
Get the dusty
250
bottles of Rioja.
250 bottles on a bottle shop, and you are picking a rosé. That bottle of Rioja Rosé may have Rioja Grand Reserve may have been there for like 6-7 years. Hopefully laying down, and it's now perfectly ready to drink. And it may be cheap but no one will pick it because of the color, because everyone is going for the light version of roses.
Our favorite place to buy our ready-to-drink wines, grays.com, of course, where, of course, there are so many rosé choices, including the ones that we have purchased here today. A link in the show notes below to get rosé at a great price at auction, and they also have just like great prices to buy it right now. Carlos has given us a couple of great points here. It is overwhelming buying rosé. We've made that very clear. You've made that very clear by letting us know, wanting this episode to come out. I think looking for that sort of 12% alcohol, or that mid-range white wine style alcohol, is going to help find that dry wine for you. I think also looking for Tavel is a really cool, interesting choice. And don't be pushed away from something like an aged Rioja when it comes to a rosé. I can't wait to try one myself. My mouth is watering. It might be the acid from the Giant Steps rosé, or it might just be the way he described it. Carlos Santos, thank you very much for the deep dive into rosé. If you resonated with this episode, share it with a friend. Maybe head to our Instagram at @GotSomm. Check out some of the content that we're cutting up there from our episode today, and make sure you give us a follow. Thank you very much for listening, watching. Until the next episode, Salud.